if you clicked in, I messed up. I messed up early. So if you got in here quite a few minutes ago, and you clicked in and then you click over, take it out and re-click in if you would, kindly, because I messed up. And so I had to restart. Yeah, there you go. Welcome to midterm. 8 weeks into the semester. You've made it. Yes, and I'm hearing good reports. I have had the chance to sit in 2 different labs and hear witness speeches. Some strong, some weak, some a little, but for the most part, and I'm getting reports, right? Elaine, right, Jeremy? Good speeches. Interesting topics. Intriguing topics. Statistics, information. Influence on your course peers.
Getting excited about Speakers Night.
Getting excited about Speakers Night. Okay, so we have anyone that has a good nomination, either yourself or someone else, that you'll encourage for Speakers Night. That is happening December the 4th. Or big prizes, fire, textbook, gift certificates. I think it was a $300 textbook gift certificate. Not to buy it, what book?
Science book, maybe.
I have to tell you that it's Boston Day. Did you know that? I did not know that. I did not know that. And I watched the morning news. I was watching the news as I was getting ready. And what is this? These guys are the best employees ever. My graduate students coordinated flowers and a picture. I had to condense the picture so your face looks kind of long. A card. And Elena brought me coffee. Don't I have the best graduate students across campus? Yes? Yes, I think so. So thank you for that, you guys. I appreciate that. Just a note, it is midterm. Your midterm grades will be submitted by Friday. And then a notice, if you are deficient, will be provided to the registrar's office. And if you're at a deficient standing, that means you're at 60% or less in the class. And that can happen because of a number of reasons. Maybe your attendance, maybe your course performance or lack of performance, or you haven't done the work. And so most likely if you're sitting in this class, that wouldn't pertain to you. I think after doing an audit of the attendance, it's the people that are not here in class. And so I do have to tell you though that this is midterm week and those grades are calculated and submitted by Friday. Many of your lab instructors have already gotten your grades, and so nice job. For the most part, very, very good job. I will compile an average score when the persuasive speeches are done. We quantify and we track and we look at your progress on the speech-making process in terms of statistics and numerical representation of the areas of improvement. That's how we grade you progressively using this rubric. And so I can provide you those numbers when the persuasive speeches are over. It's kind of interesting to watch students progress in terms of how you look on paper. And then also what we hear from the graduate students. Your midterm attendance should be checked through D2L by the end of the week. I am working with Katie Webster right now to compile the lab attendance and the lecture attendance, the clicker attendance. Obviously, you can check that through the discussion field, and I hope you are. Every day after class, I upload the clicker responses and the results, quiz results, through D2L. And then also the quizzes. Quizzes 1 through 6, there's a quiz this week, but quizzes 1 through 6 will be available for review for 1 week, and so I would strongly encourage that you look over those quizzes and that content, and you can see how you score, what you missed, the correct answers, and all that information through D2L. I will do the same for quizzes 7 through 10 prior to the final exam as well, but just those couple of announcements. Any other questions about that? Some housekeeping stuff. What I have for you today is kind of a quasi-review, and also just to reiterate some of the same structure that we'll use for your group advocacy campaigns. Now, my graduate students are telling me that we're missing a few topics for the advocacy campaigns, and so if you haven't yet uploaded your topics, please do so. Otherwise, your lab instructors will be forced to choose your topic for you, and we don't want that. We want you to choose and define and research your own topics. And so make sure that you're turning in those advocacy campaign topics. There is a late drop box, and I think, are you charging them points for that, or are you letting them turn that in for full credit at this point? You know?
I'm just doing full credit.
You're just doing full credit. So even if it's late and you submit it into the late drop box, Elaine is being so kind as saying, hey, I'm going to give you full credit. Those topics are worth 15 points. They're 5 points each. Just a reminder, I hope by now you know the rubric works with a Y, an N, or an H. Either the speaking element is there in terms of a Y, it's not, it's absent, your lab instructor is putting an N in that field, or you receive half a credit. Maybe you've partially met the requirement of the generic speaking rubric that we're going to use all semester. So I hope that you understand how that rubric works. We're grading progressively, and so maybe some of the elements are missing, but your lab instructor is just going to give you a half a point off versus 1 to 4 points off per element based on how serious of a problem it might be. So maybe you have vocal fillers, and Jeremy is saying, well, you know, this is their first round, and so I'm going to take maybe a half to 1 point off. And it's subjective at that intersection, but you evaluate your students, he's evaluating you based on that generic rubric with that system. So make sure that you understand how the rubric works. You're going to use this same rubric in your group advocacy speech, and your grade depends largely on someone else. I know that may sound daunting, and maybe it might be a little uncomfortable for other people, especially as you've watched your course peers and you think, oh, I don't want to speak with that person, or I really want to align myself and speak with that person. But our theory is that high tides raise all boats. So research shows that a lot of your speech improvement comes from two things. From social comparison, as you watch other people and you compare and you adjust and you challenge yourself that way, and also from the peer coaching, not peer, P-E-E-R, peer coaching that takes place as a result of a group project. And so you get together and you work on these projects, and you have a great cohesive group, ideally. And you do this well, and everyone gets a good grade. Inversely, if I don't press you on that, then we risk just putting together a segmented presentation. And we've seen those in classes before, have we not? Where, oh, you do this, you do this, you do this, and we'll just throw it together. Well, you know what? That lacks cohesion, and it lacks the critical thought process of the group. And so I'm really calling on you to get together, to spend time together, to talk about your topics, to talk about how it is that you will present the topics and how you will transition in your speech and provide good movement, because that's tricky as well. And then the individual portions obviously will be with your delivery. And I think 1/4 of your group grade is individual, based on your own delivery. There are a few concessions we'll make if someone bluntly drops below the radar, I'll say, or they fail your group in a very pleasant, obvious way. We'll have to talk about that, but for the most part, you are graded together. I hope that you're seeing, what are some of the strategies that you're seeing? This is a complete review. Tell me what you are seeing in your lab. What are some of the most interesting ways that people are introducing their speeches? Tell me. What are they doing?
Questions.
What's that?
Questions.
Asking questions? Okay. Has anyone done a shout and response? You know what I'm talking about? I say Amy, you say awesome. Amy.
Awesome.
What kind of question is that? Is it a rhetorical question? No, it's a direct question. You're asking your audience for a response. Okay, so rhetorical question. Any startling statistics? Anything that you left your classroom thinking, I never knew that before? I hope so. I hope that your course peers are coming up with some pretty interesting strategies, some interesting stories, or maybe quotes that are reaching you during your speeches. Are we seeing strong delivery? Are we seeing an absence of vocal fillers? And are we seeing the proper structure? It may seem awkward right? And we're calling on you to do this in this class. If you take it from this class, great. If you don't, that's up to you. But what do we do with our hands during our speech? I hope that they're not on the note cards, that they're by your side. They're not in your pockets, on your hip, doing anything to threaten your poise in front of your class. And I hope that the introductions and the conclusions are memorized in order to make the optimal connection with your audience. And I hope that you're supporting each other in this. We are replicating this process in the group speech. We're doing the same thing over. The only difference is you need to have a cohesive group unit. You'll provide for the transitions, and you'll work with a group to provide the same type of message, a persuasive message. Your thesis should be clear. Your mini thesis statements should be simple. We want you to replicate that same type of schema in the group speech. This is Katie Westra's example here. Katie Westra teaches online for us, and she developed this very interesting speech. Mine of this semester was smoking is bad, and Katie's is Snuggies are awesome. I know she has some fascination with Snuggies. Snuggies are awesome. Snuggies are awesome for 3 reasons. Snuggies are functional, Snuggies are economical, and Snuggies are, I forgot the third one.
Warm?
So that will be memorable. Is this awkward for you, the nonverbal transition? It is, isn't it? Yes. And last week when I was droning on and on about presenting the speech, and I said, oh, you need to consider your anticipation step, your implementation step, and your relaxation step, I kind of thought, yeah. And then you're standing in front of your audience, you're going, how was that again? Oh, yeah. You know, it takes some practice. My first point, my second point, my third point. And I'm watching your videos, and I'm watching people pace, and stand over here, and I'm watching them pace, and then over here. You know, that's okay. You know, but work on being natural in your movement, but very deliberate at the same time. Public speaking is part art and part science. We've provided the structure and the scientific part, but it's up to you to make this an art form. You truly practice to prepare first, and then to practice, and to put it all together. My speech today is John F. Kennedy, JFK's rhetoric. A little bit from the infamous 1960 presidential debates against the VP Nixon at the time, up to his inaugural address in 1961. Do you think JFK ever stood before an audience without practicing? Heck no. That guy would tan. He was tanning himself in 1960. He knew the importance of presence. He knew the importance of practice. He took a nap before those famous 1960 debates. He knew how important it was to present his best self verbally and non-verbally. They would find him, Ted Kennedy, no relation to me, sadly. Ted Kennedy, one of his foremost speechwriters, in his memoirs, talked about JFK taking a nap, but would be surrounded by note cards. They walk into his bedroom to wake him up, and he'd be surrounded by note cards because he was quizzing himself, so he was solid in his information. Do you think President Obama, do you think Barack Obama and Mitt Romney are quizzing themselves right now just because they're asleep somewhere taking a nap on a plane after quizzing themselves about policy? I hope so. I think so. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? So public speaking is not just something that happens. It's something that you prepare for, that you adapt to, and so that on the fly you can adapt to the audience, but you're solid in your preparation. You know yourself, you know the material, and so I'm asking you to do the same thing, to prepare diligently and to practice, but then yet be able to adapt, be able to draw from that confidence that you have from your preparation. It is part art, part science. No one is going to tell you that in a textbook. They're going to tell you the whole structural scientific part, but it's an art form, and it takes a lot of work. And so if this is a little bit awkward for you, 1, 2, 3, that's okay. You have a little dissonance over that, but it helps to provide that kind of structure. And even if you leave here and you don't use it, at least you tried it on for size in this class. Provide the structure that it's easy to follow, and then also think about what you're doing non-verbally. The debates tonight. Has anyone been listening to the political pundits this morning? I listened to all the way down. Can't wait for this town hall debate. Even my 8-year-old son is interested in that. It probably doesn't surprise you. It's what we talk about over our dinner table. But the nonverbals are likely to impact the outcome and the success of tonight's debate, right? They're already talking about camera angles and even the use of stage presence by Obama and Romney. And how many of you are planning to watch that tonight? I hope all of you are. I hope you're available or you watch it. You can watch the whole thing in review online, thanks to, I think you can find it.
Pretty much any of the major networks and CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS.
Right. I'm
Can you
going to watch
clock it,
it,
please?
and then I'm going to listen to it, and then I'm going to rewatch it. And so I can tell the difference with the absence of the nonverbals.
Nonverbals were big in the vice presidential debate. Biden got slammed and criticized for his nonverbals.
Yes. Huge. We say so much without saying anything at all. The way that our faces, we talked about face work the other day, our eye contact. Already, Obama is getting criticism for looking down, and what do they say that communicates when he looks down while Romney's speaking?
Defeat.
What?
Defeat.
Yeah, defeat, and they're saying that it's a nonverbal for agreeing with what he's saying. And I think that's fascinating. I'm being totally apolitical right now. I'm not subscribing to any side in front of you. I want you to watch. I want you to watch those tonight and pay attention. Posture, hands, and this translates to what you're doing as well. Are you seeing people who are poised in your labs? Are you seeing people who lack poise, who lack confidence? When you stand up straight, you can project your voice off the back of the room. I'm doing it right now. It's kind of fun. But you can do so much more with your voice when you're poised, you have good posture, and you're ready, and you're ready to adapt. You can turn and look at each side of the room. Your voice and how you vary your voice. I saw one thing, and I think I talked about this last week. Stay strong. I see a lot of students who trail off at the end of phrasing. Stay strong. Keep your voice strong. Watch that on your tape. And look at people. Also, here was a good note. I talked to, I had a flash mob of students the other day. I don't know if you're in here today, but I had a flash mob of students in the month, which I like. I like students to talk with me. They said, we don't get this. I said, it is not rocket science. The first 2 pages of the rubric are what we are filling out to give you feedback. And the last 4 pages explain every single detail. And so read through those. That little box says read through those because you need to understand those elements of the rubric. We're going to use this again and again and again. We're going to replicate this process. Yeah, this is where I thought you might be falling asleep. Okay, so today's speech today is on the rhetoric of JFK. Like I was saying, historically speaking, the first televised presidential debate happened in what year? Do you know? Oh, who was it? Who were part of the first televised presidential debates? Yep, Nixon and JFK, right. And 52 years ago, that event happened. It was September 1960 in the fall. Senator Kennedy at the time was up and coming. He had a couple things going against him. Do you know what those things were? He was deemed too youthful, and what's the other thing?
Irish Catholic.
He was an Irish Catholic, yeah. This poor guy had a lot of things working against him. And he made the choice, he and Nixon entered into the first televised debate, and they changed the landscape of political history, right? And have you studied that debate? Have you watched anything about that debate? In 1960, you have to take yourself, think about the rhetorical situation in 1960. Were any of us alive in 1960? Can you imagine what it would have been like to live in 1960? That would have been awesome. But it would have been an interesting time as well. I keep saying those things on camera, dang it. Yeah, anyhow. It would have been an interesting time to live in 1960. It was right in the thick of the Cold War communist rhetoric. We were post-World War II. We were pre-Vietnam. Let's see, what else was interesting about 1960?
Start of the space race.
What?
Start of the space race. We were threatened technologically by the Soviets.
That's right. We were entering into the space race. We were at the dawn of the nuclear age. Can you imagine what it would have been like to plan for a bomb cellar in your backyard? Does anyone in here have a bomb cellar on your farm or on where you grew up? Where did you grow up, Peter?
I grew up in Vermillion, but our farm's out by Alcester. And one of our neighbors on his farm, actually it's like right next to his big red barn that got torn down a few years ago.
Yeah.
But there's a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
And it's like a cellar. You go, like old time cellars, you open
Yeah.
them up, kind of like Dorothy was a garage. You
Yeah.
go down there.
We
There's,
talk
like,
about
30
terrorism
rooms.
of our day. That was their terrorism. The threat of a nuclear bomb and being destroyed. And it was a real threat that was communicated and people acted on. And here locally, people were building bomb shelters over in Alcester.
And then you go to
Bomb
Sioux
shelter
City,
in
and at some of those places, you can see fallout shelters on some of the buildings.
And so we were in an interesting time politically, socially, environmentally, and that was it was quite a time for JFK to run for president. It was one of the slimmest wins in history. The margins were very slim in that race, and
Some precincts were just decided by one vote.
some precincts were decided by one vote. Nixon and Kennedy provided the first televised debate that they say changed our political history. They went on to have a series of debates, as most candidates do in a general election, in which Nixon was deemed the clear winner, but they attribute, political historians attribute JFK's win in 1960 to that first televised debate in 1960. I've included a little piece here. The debate itself is a 60-minute duel, and if you listen to it, if you read the transcription of it, actually Nixon's reasoning was way more sound. He clearly was a winner of the debate. If you listen to the debate, an audio version of the debate, or as many people did on the radio, he would have been the clear winner. His reasoning was sound. JFK had argument fallacy, but when you watch the debate, JFK is the golden boy, literally. He appears youthful, he's tan. Nixon at the time was dealing with, he had a hurt leg, he'd been in the hospital, or hip, one of the two. But he was in pain. And he was under some really bright lights of a studio, and they positioned him, he was in a pale gray suit, which made him washed out, looked even more washed out. He was starting to sweat, and so he looked like he was being deceitful. His nonverbals were misinterpreted by the American public. JFK, like I said, he had prepared. He looked like the golden boy. He was youthful, he was energetic, he was enthusiastic. His charisma really started to shine through. And I didn't know that until I started reading the memoirs of Ted Kennedy, how he prepared. He quizzed himself, he was tanning the night before, all while very serious about his preparations. But he took steps that made him look nonverbal and more appealing as the candidate. And I think that's fascinating. The piece that I have here was hosted by Dan Rather. And I'm going to fast forward to the 3-minute mark. He showed some glimpses of the debates. If you get a chance, I would highly encourage you to watch the debate itself and take in some of these complexities that I present here. But just watch what I this analysis.
Can freedom be maintained?
The candidates were close on the issues, particularly on a tough stand against the Soviet Union.
I, of course, disagree with Senator Kennedy.
Studies after the debate show that those who heard it on the radio thought Mr. Nixon had won. Those who saw it on television gave the edge to Kennedy.
The man in the balance. Attempt to
The image that came over definitely favored Kennedy.
Surplus, which breaks the price.
To see his earnestness, to feel his charm, to feel his idealism, I'm convinced that he would not have won without the debates.
After the closest presidential election of the century, the country's oldest elected president at the time was succeeded by its youngest.
I remember watching the inaugural with pleasure and even a kind of pride. I was struck by the fact that he didn't wear an overcoat, though it was a very cold January day.
Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
It was very exhilarating in a sense to have a man as young and articulate and electric as John Kennedy was. What he said was quite hawkish when we look back on
that
it.
we shall pay any price bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
After the soaring words of the inaugural speech, the inaugural parties gave final proof to the notion that a younger and more glamorous administration had arrived.
I remember Lenny Bruce say, "Isn't it great to have a president who you can imagine sleeping with his wife?" And I thought at the time, God, I think that too. You could identify with the man in that sense. And yet, it was the first president that seemed like a guy, not like something on a dollar bill.
The idea of a White House run and staffed by younger people, with a 32-year-old chief speechwriter and a press secretary in his 30s, and all these people around Kennedy, there was that feeling that, well, if they're running the political system, surely we can be somehow involved in it.
We wanted to serve. We wanted to do something because young people, me included, in those days, did wonder how we were ever going to top the generation before us. Our fathers had fought World War II. They had won the Depression in some way. What are we going to
do? I think that's fascinating to watch, and it still flavors our opinions, our perceptions today with the political process. You know, from who they choose as their running mate to how those people are perceived and how they function on the national stage. I just think that's interesting. I think it's fascinating. It all encompasses the public speaking process. The speech of the day that I've embedded is an inaugural address that happened in January of 1961. This is only a 4-minute segment of that speech, but the speech itself is rather brief. President Kennedy didn't address many of the policies that he ran his campaign platform on, but instead chose to focus on a message of hope for the American people and put out a different message. I want you to pay close attention to the persuasive strategy that he uses and some of the reasoning and the claims and the appeals that he makes in the speech. Look for the metaphors, look for the signs, look for the deductive and inductive reasoning that he provides, and then also look at how he reaches the American public. It was brought up in this particular preview segment that during his inaugural address, he didn't look like a traditional candidate. He had taken off his top hat, his coat, despite a 20-degree, cool, crisp, very cold day in Washington, and he was speaking in front of a crowd of 20,000 people, and then also a larger televised audience as well. But I want you to take in the words, the style of John F. Kennedy, and tell me what you see with your eyes, because you will most likely catch some things I don't as well. It's just 4 more minutes here. Oh, shoot. Okay, so I hyperlinked this from the speech bank. This AmericanRhetoric.com is an online speech bank that I've told you about before. It stockpiles some of the most memorable speeches in history. Not all mediated. Most great speeches in history happened before the advent of media. But JFK's speech is the second most famous speech in our American rhetoric. Who do you think has the first most memorable speech?
FDR.
Martin Luther King, I agree. Top 100 speeches right here, and then JFK's inaugural address. January 20th, 1960.
Vice President Johnson, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, President Eisenhower, Vice President Nixon, President Truman, Reverend clergy, fellow citizens. We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom. symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hand the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of that first revolution. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed, and to which we are committed today at home and around the world. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty. This much we pledge and more. To those old allies whose cultural and spiritual origins we share, we pledge the loyalty of faithful friends. United, there is little we cannot do in a host of cooperative ventures. Divided, there is little we can do, for we dare not meet a powerful challenge at odds and split asunder. To those new states whom we welcome to the ranks of the free, we pledge our word that one form of colonial control shall not have passed away merely to be replaced by a far more iron tyranny. We shall not always expect to find them supporting our view, but we shall always hope to find them strongly supporting their own freedom, and to remember that in the past, those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside.
So what type of rhetorical devices did he use? Anyone remember what we talked about in class and what you've learned, maybe what you've used in your own strategy? I'll give you some hints. Kennedy's known for his antithetical statements, use of antithesis. One of his most famous antithetical statements is how he ended his speech. Do you know what that famous antithetical statement is? It's a statement that, it's a compound statement that appears contrary in phrasing, but it drives home the point. And that antithetical statement was, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Yeah, that was one of his most famous antithetical statements. There's another one that he used early on. Did you catch it? Divided, there's little we cannot do. United, there's very little we cannot do. Divided, there's little we can do. And he's calling on us to unite. What other things, what other tactics and strategies did JFK use in this speech. I set the stage for you by telling you a little bit about what it would have been like to give this speech in 1961. You understood a little bit more about what it was like to campaign in 1960 prior to the election. What was this speech calling for? Exactly. Calling on a world stage, an international stage, particularly an American public to come together, to unite. Right? And he paid homage and tribute and loyalty to those generations who've gone before. He said, and we passed the torch, the torch has been passed to a new generation. Saying, here we are, we are the new government, right? But without being so boastful. He was very strategic in how he worded that. You know, we're the new guys in town. And he did so in a very eloquent manner. He's used very, we coin it plain speak in communication studies. He used brief phrasing and he was very emphatic in what he had to say. He was able to reach audiences of all ages. Young school children wrote letters to the administration following the speech that they were inspired, they were touched by his words. Older generations of Americans were writing in support of JFK. His style was a very uniting style, and he made use of all sorts of speaking strategies. He made use of metaphor. By riding the back of the tiger. Who was he talking to in terms of what was to the communist leaders?
You made reference to the Iron Curtain.
To the what?
Iron Curtain.
The Iron Curtain, right, in the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
Anaphora is the use of the same word. Alliteration is the use of the same sound. Parallelism is building your sentence structure and so that it has cadence and timing. And those are all things that you can think of when you craft your own persuasive style, when you go forth and make speeches in this class and beyond. Many of my students go on to be student leaders and political leaders in their own right, and think of this and refer to some of this rhetoric that has laid the foundation for us, and watch for it. Watch for it tonight, even in some of our more contemporary pieces of political rhetoric in the Romney and the Obama town hall debate.
Starts at 8 p.m.
There you go. It's in New York tonight.
New York, New York.
So, that's all I have to